Welcome to the Critical Breakdown, the podcast where we start at the bottom of Rotten Tomatoes and work our way to 100% fresh. I'm Scott.
And I'm Max, and today we're talking about Miami Vice.
Yeah.
Rated 47% on Rotten Tomatoes.
For clarity, that is, of course, the movie.
Yeah, the 2006 film.
Michael Mann.
Michael Mann.
Though he was involved in both.
Yeah. But before we get to that, what's up, Scott?
Not much, man. How are you?
Pretty good.
Haven't seen you in a while.
Yeah, since last episode.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
That is wild. You been watching anything?
I've been watching a lot of stuff.
Me too.
So, first of all, I watched something that you recommended to me a year ago. The Nice Guys.
Oh, yeah.
It was good. It's on HBO now.
Yeah, it's good.
I enjoyed it. It was fun.
Yeah.
It was funny.
Yeah.
It was still a good story.
There you go.
I wish more people saw it.
Yeah, it's kind of sad.
I know a lot of people on the internet that like movies were mad because it was a original film.
Yep.
And it did nothing in the theaters basically. But
yeah, and I even remember a decent marketing campaign, or maybe I was just in the market they were marketing to, because I remember seeing a lot of ads for it.
Yeah, I saw a good amount of ads for it, and I saw a good amount of praise for it. I just think, going back to something we've discussed many times, these summers get so packed with these big things that it's hard to fit these unique ones in there.
And this was early summer, I think.
Yeah, it was.
We're not looking at the date, but I'm pretty sure it was like early May before even Civil War came out or anything. But
it was good. I really enjoyed it. I liked all
fun.
the performances.
Ryan Gosling was my favorite part of that movie.
I enjoyed seeing him play more of a he was charming but not cool. He was
aloof.
Yeah, he was dorky too.
Yeah.
His reactions were really good.
Very good.
And I liked seeing a chubby Russell Crowe do stuff. He was like he had like a good gut, but he was still like doing the good tough guy stuff. Yeah, it was good. Enjoyed it.
It was a cool movie. Check it out if you guys have. It's on HBO, so check it out.
Yeah. One funny thing that is of no interest to anybody, when the assistant showed up, who was played by Yaya DaCosta, the one that Ryan Gosling instantly was attracted to.
Right.
I was like, that's Yaya DaCosta, which just for the record is a contestant from America's Next Top Model. I don't know why I knew that. I just knew that right off the top of my head.
Well, all right.
It was weird.
The more you know, right?
The more you know.
It's funny, you watched The Nice Guys, which didn't do well in theaters, unfortunately, and now probably feel a little bad, didn't support it, right?
Nah, I mean,
Okay.
I do.
Well, that was a segue into a movie I watched this week.
What'd you watch?
A Monster Calls, another 2016.
You wanted to see that one, didn't you?
I was really excited for it, and then there was a lot of confusion about the release date.
Yeah.
And I never saw it, and it bombed in theaters, and now, having watched it this week, it's excellent, and I feel terrible that I am part of the problem.
No, that was a really confusing release.
Yeah, but still, I mean, I'm actively reading. I knew when it came out, and I just didn't go see it. But it was an incredibly beautiful and touching coming-of-age tale.
It looked good.
I'm a sucker for a nested story. A nested story is a trope where it's a story within a story. One of my favorite examples is I think it's part 1 of Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows. It might be part 2, The Story of the Hallows.
It's part 1, I think.
Yeah. It's really cool. A lot of times directors will use a totally different visual style for them. And this movie has 2 or 3 nested stories within it that have really unique visual taste.
That's cool.
It was a really cool movie, man.
The movie Noah had a real cool nested little story that goes into the creation myth.
Yeah, I think it's a cool way to, one, do storytelling within a movie.
Yeah.
It feels super immersive to me because whenever I'm reading a story or picturing something, I tend to imagine like a movie in my head. So then seeing the nested story visualized like that is really cool to me. And it's sort of exposition, but it's a supernatural way to do it.
Yeah.
Because we're literally showing you instead of telling you. We're showing you.
And it can usually be pretty visual too.
Yeah. So I really like it. If you're into that kind of thing, this movie was full of it. And it's also a very touching movie. At the end, I texted my mom. I was like, hey, Ma, I love you. A tear was shed.
Tears were
shed. It's a really good movie.
I thought the trailer was pretty powerful.
Yeah, the trailer is what got me hooked on it.
Got your girl, Felicity Jones.
Yeah, and she has a pretty powerful but small role.
No.
the interesting thing about it is, how do you market a movie like that? Like, it's a coming of age story about a very young kid
who loses his mother
to cancer.
Yeah.
So it's,
and it also heavily was effects driven too, with all those like stories and stuff, and that's kind of a hard sell for some people.
Yeah, so you don't market it to kids because it's heavy.
Yeah.
But a lot of coming of age stories get marketed to younger audiences. So that's probably part of the reason it failed in theaters. Just because who do you show it to?
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm glad I saw it.
It's good, man.
Yeah.
I'll have to check it out.
Yeah.
I've also been watching the old Justice League cartoon and Justice League Unlimited, which is the follow-up cartoon, but they're related. It's like season 1, 2, then season 3, 4.
Okay.
I've been watching that on Netflix.
Cool.
It's
the Cartoon Network one, right?
Yeah, I think it was actually Cartoon Network. I remember watching it here and there when it aired.
Yeah.
But it's the one with the cool guitar intro. I like it. I like the DC properties, but it's cool, man. I like how they do their episodes. They're pretty. It's not just like serialized stories per episode. It's over a whole season. There's like an ongoing story, and there's a lot of like tiny little episodic streaks here and there with stuff, and it all usually ties together in a neat story in the end. But you don't think it's really going there. It's just fun. I recommend it for anyone who wants to learn more about like what DC is trying to do with their movies, but not really successfully doing. Yeah. If you want to learn more of these characters, it's a good watch.
I remember I would occasionally I'd never go out of my way to watch it, but I would occasionally catch it here and there. And one episode, for whatever reason, very vividly stands out in my mind, and it was one of those single episode arcs about Booster Gold.
What's the one where the city's under attack and he's on people duty?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good
one. But
he
wants to be a hero.
Yeah.
It was. I don't know why. Because I've mentioned to you Booster Gold a few times. That's literally my only interaction with Booster Gold.
That's a good one with them.
Yeah.
I like that one.
But those were always really well made and well regarded.
Yeah. It's fun because one thing they do is you get some episodes like with Booster Gold, you don't get much backstory. His backstory in that episode is that he confesses at one point he came from the future because he wants to be a rich superhero.
Yeah.
That's all you need, though. Like, they run with that. They make it. They paint it in the story. It's just cool. It's good storytelling. Yeah. It's a good way to kind of digest a lot of superhero stuff without being bogged down with a ton of continuity.
Yeah.
But I'm enjoying it. It's just good. Like, it's kind of like how you say sometimes you just want The Office on.
Yeah, it's like a comfortable.
I'll just throw on the Justice League.
Yeah.
And I've been watching. I watched a couple more episodes of Legion.
Superhero kick.
Yeah, that one's Noah Hawley.
Yeah.
It's good stuff. It's weird. You can't really even explain it too much. There's some interesting things with it, like Aubrey Plaza's character apparently was written for like a 45-year-old man, and I don't know if she just like fought for the role or whatever. But when you see the stuff she's doing in it, it's like, oh yeah. Because she'll just say stuff like, "We did all these drugs when I was finger banging this girl," and like she just says it. And you're like, okay. But then if you imagine like Danny DeVito saying it makes more sense.
You're like, oh yeah.
But it still makes sense with her character, the way she plays it. It's just like she almost talks like an old gross dude would. So it's fun.
It's still on my list. There's like 4 TV shows right now. I'm not sure which I want to dip into. Like the next season of Better Call Saul is on Netflix now, and I want to get caught up. And, I just finished Fargo, so that one's scratched off the list. So I got to figure out which direction I'm going to go.
Yeah, we finished Fargo too, and I just needed some more weirdness in my life.
Yeah,
so
you got it.
Yeah. Anything else you've been watching?
I watched another flop, The Finest Hours.
Yeah,
it's a Disney live action 1920s nautical rescue movie.
Chris Pine, Casey Affleck.
Yeah.
Who else?
Eric Bana. There's a couple more sort of recognizable faces. I remember one of the young bankers from The Big Short was in it as one of the like cadets on the Coast Guard. But I just threw it on because I wasn't feeling too well this week, and I needed something that I could watch. And if I didn't pay attention, I wouldn't be too sad about it.
Mm-hmm.
But it actually really gripped me. It's very interestingly shot. Like visually, it looks like a movie from the 60s or 50s, like filmed in that kind of style.
Yeah.
There's a lot of cool action shots of the ships like crashing. Like the ship Casey Affleck is the chief engineer on. It's in a storm. It's shipwrecked. The ship splits in half, and it's really cool the way they show it. So I was actually really happy with that. And the movie is totally by the numbers, like nothing unique plot-wise. And it's based on a true story, so I guess you don't have much creative liberty.
Yeah.
But it's not really going to wow you there. And the character development's not that great. But it was just like a really gripping little adventure.
It sounds like you go on knowing what you're getting and you're okay with what you got.
And you got it.
Yeah, yeah.
So
sometimes that's fine, man.
Yeah. It's on Netflix, so check it out if you want.
Cool.
Yeah.
You hear that, folks? Let us know what you think.
Yeah, I was surprised at how much I enjoyed it.
Cool. I might check it out now.
Yeah,
I mean,
there you go.
I remember it coming out, and I didn't really care about it from the trailer.
I didn't
but,
either.
You know, I'm always down to watch something.
There was that, and then that In the Heart of the Sea, which had an even worse release than A Monster Calls. That's the Ron Howard, Chris Hemsworth, not Moby Dick, but Moby Dick movie.
Yeah, I remember that.
And its release date got moved, I want to say twice, and big windows. Like, I think it was supposed to come out when The Force Awakens was coming out. So they moved it to the next spring or something. And so the first trailer came out like a year and a half before the movie came out. So it was a huge gap. And then it flopped from there. But
yeah. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Sounds like some mismanagement there.
Yeah. Well, it's a complicated industry.
It's true.
Yeah.
Anything you excited about? Anything you thinking about? Movie-wise, life-wise.
We got a big summer coming up.
It is, yeah.
There's a lot of cool movies coming out. I'm really excited.
We might have to, do another prediction episode.
I think we will.
Yeah.
But I think the one that comes out soonest that I'm most excited for, the new King Arthur, Legend of the Sword, looks really cool.
It looks pretty cool, man.
I
that
really
new
like
trailer
these Guy Ritchie movies.
I was into it already, but that new trailer is like really cool.
Yeah.
So.
And it's showing a little more like mystical side of it, which I think will be cool.
Yeah.
And I can't even tell really what the plot's going to be. Like there's those huge elephants.
Yeah.
I don't know what that
There's
is.
so many art, like we've discussed Arthur before, obviously, kind of.
On the Arthur episode.
Yeah. There's some movies that try to take it the realistic route. There's some that focus on just the romance. I mean, I know there's Excalibur, which focused on some of the mysticism involved. I watched about 2/3 of that recently, and it's pretty cool. But the style of it's completely different in every single way than Guy Ritchie.
Well, yeah, and Guy Ritchie's so unique.
Yeah, like this looks very action oriented, but still like with a pretty good story involved. So
yeah, my only worry is that this story is going to be a total mess because I can't tell what's going on. But I'm sure they're just saving a lot of the details, which I encourage.
If I feel the story in this new trailer was like the strongest so far, so I'm pretty excited right now.
Yeah.
We'll see. It comes out pretty soon, right?
It comes out early May, I want to say.
Cool.
It's bummed. It was supposed to come out in March, and then they moved it to May, which is
that means
crazy.
they're pretty proud of it then.
Yeah, that's a big vote of confidence. So I'm encouraged by that because it kind of looked messy but fun.
Yeah.
And now it looks like, hey, they want to make it a summer blockbuster. They've been marketing it a good bit. I think it's got some real potential.
I really enjoy like Arthurian legends and stuff. They're pretty fun. You can make cool stories out of it.
There's a lot of potential.
Yeah.
I don't love Charlie Hunnam though, so.
I mean, I really only know him from.
Yeah.
What is it, Pacific Rim?
Yeah, same here.
I know people love that biker show though.
Yeah, Sons of
I don't know if
Anarchy.
they love him in it, but they love that biker show.
And he's in that a movie that just came out, I think, limited, that Lost City of Z, which
I
don't get what it is.
Me either.
And
I think it has to do with Africa or South America.
But something about him, I don't know. It just doesn't.
I will say this: I got respect for him for one reason. He was originally signed to be the guy in 50 Shades of Grey. Started kind of getting the buzz on what that movie was and what the property is, and was just like, I'm out.
Never mind.
I'm out of here. I'm not doing it.
I respect that.
Yeah, so I'm cool with that.
Yeah. But I don't know. I don't know what it is about him.
You know what's interesting about 50 Shades of Grey?
I don't think much is.
Nah, not really anything.
But hit me with what you got.
It stars Dakota Johnson, who is the daughter of Don Johnson, the star of the TV show Miami Vice.
That is very interesting.
Yeah, it's a legacy actress.
Yeah.
And Miami Vice happens to be the movie we're talking about this week.
Hey everyone, today's Bringer Back is brought to you by Boomerangs. They always come back.
Make sure you hashtag any commentary on Twitter about this episode with hashtag Boomerangs.
Mags, what's the plot synopsis for Miami Vice?
As a modern take on the 1980s TV action drama, this update focuses on Vice detectives Crockett and Tubbs as their respective personal and professional lives become dangerously intertwined.
I'm just now realizing that Crockett and Tubbs sounds like a really scummy law firm.
Yeah. Or like a butter brand.
That's true. Why'd we pick it?
Well, mostly because it's a Michael Mann film.
Yeah.
It's a cool concept to revisit his own property and make a movie out of it.
Yeah, and I didn't even when we picked it, I didn't realize that Michael Mann had done the TV show.
Yeah.
I just thought Michael Mann does these kind of stylized crime-based movies, and he's good at them.
I think I don't know if I read this right, but I think Jamie Foxx had first suggested like revisiting it. Somebody, I want to say someone in this.
Yeah.
I think it was Jamie Foxx. Maybe just offhand mentioned to him one time, like, "Dude, Miami Vice is awesome. You should do a film of it."
Like, wouldn't I make a good Tubbs?
But yeah, we picked it. Like I said, Michael Mann. It's a cool concept. I remember I saw this when it came out, and I enjoyed it quite a bit when I saw it. And this time around, I didn't feel as
good about it.
But there are things I still like about it that I liked about it then.
Yeah.
So
it's an interesting movie. I mean, it's 47%, so that's pretty much a coin flip of people who liked it and people who didn't.
Yeah.
And I can see why. I mean, it's good and bad. What didn't we pick?
Hidalgo.
That's Vigo, right?
That's Vigo's first post Lord of the Rings movie.
Okay. I remember it, I think, for that reason.
Yeah, and I think that's why everyone remembers, because they're like, what's this?
Hidalgo.
Like, this is what you're doing, Vigo? So, yeah, it just sounded boring. Orgasmo. That's Trey Parker and Matt Stone.
Is it?
Yeah, it's like a porno story film.
Oh.
I think it's
I didn't realize it was Trey Parker and Matt
right on the heels of Basketball.
Tough act.
Yeah. The A-Team, the 2010 film. So we had another remake kind of situation here from a TV show.
Having now seen both of these movies, we made the right choice.
Yeah, you showed me the tank scene.
The tank scene's great.
For reference, that's they're falling through the sky in a tank, and they shoot off the tank in order to move the tank in position to land.
They shoot it down first to slow them down.
Yeah.
And then they shoot it to the sides to move them around. It's pretty stupid.
At that moment, I knew I just didn't even need to see it.
It had a pretty good cast.
Yeah, it had a really good cast.
Bradley Cooper. I want to say it was Sharlto Copley.
Yeah, he was in it.
And then, was it Kimbo Slice?
It was
like an MMA fighter or wrestler.
Yeah. We had MacGruber. Based off the SNL skit.
Yeah, it's the same guys who did Hot Rod.
Yeah. I've heard from a lot of people who I also know like Hot Rod that it's really funny. I've just never seen it. I've heard it's like uncomfortably funny.
I bet you it's the same brand of humor. If you liked Hot Rod, you'll like MacGruber.
The MacGruber skits were always pretty dumb but funny.
Yeah. I've never actually seen one of the MacGruber skits. The most MacGruber I've seen is when Michael Scott went as a MacGruber for Halloween in an episode of The Office.
There you go.
Yeah.
And then we had actually talked about doing this last movie before. I think Taylor had requested it.
Sorry, Taylor. I didn't realize.
But that is St. Elmo's Fire. Directed, I believe, by Joel Schumacher. This is probably like the lowest rated pure Brat Pack film.
Oh, okay.
You have Demi Moore, Rob Lowe, a bunch of the other ones, Andrew McCarthy, the guy who played Bender in Breakfast Club.
It's crazy that the
Judd
director
Nelson.
of the number 23 would...
so that could have been our another dip
Double
for
dip.
us. Honestly, the best thing about St. Elmo's Fire is the theme song for it. So it's a terrible movie. It is. There are fun things about it. I think... Was Emilio Estevez in that? I think Emilio Estevez might be in it.
That's Gordy Bombay for you Mighty Ducks fans out there. It's a Google fail.
Yeah, so I mean, it's there would have been plenty of stuff to talk about with this film. It's just not the best film.
A lot of good young stars there.
Yeah, like I said, it was definitely in the Brat Pack wheelhouse. It just wasn't good.
Yeah,
but that's fine. I mean, we would go into that one knowing it's pretty dumb, and we might have enjoyed parts about it. There's some ridiculous scenes in that film with like Rob Lowe being really gross and drunk and like molesting half the people in the film. So it's just dumb. So I think we made the right choice.
Yeah, I think Miami Vice is the much more interesting pick.
Yeah.
Like we said, it has Michael Mann, Colin Farrell, Jamie Foxx, Naomi Harris.
Mm-hmm.
and then a lot of good like B or C level
Yeah.
actors.
So a lot of talent in there. You had some Oscar winners and nominees.
Yeah.
You had Ciarán Hinds and Justin Theroux, who were probably more character actors at this point.
Well, now Justin Theroux's a much bigger. His star has risen.
And I mean, he's almost known more for like his writing talent as much as his acting talent. So
Yeah, because he did Zoolander
Yeah.
and Zoolander 2, I think.
but he's done a couple other things too, for sure.
He's excellent in The Leftovers. That's an HBO show. Its
Yeah,
last season
yeah,
starts
yeah,
very
yeah,
soon.
yeah.
But I really like what I've seen of that show. So
But yeah, so I mean, Miami Vice. Where to go with this one, man? How'd it do in the theaters?
it didn't do well at all.
Really?
Yeah. And I think it's an interesting market study of where do you market a Miami Vice movie? Do you try and make it like trendy for a younger audience who's not familiar with the original show? Do you try and just appeal to those fans of the original show? And what they did was none of those things. Its budget was $135 million. It's a big budget.
Yeah.
It opened at $25.7 million. I don't know what their projection was, but that can't be good. This is a summer release, July 28th, 2006.
Mm-hmm.
It opened number 1 ahead of John Tucker Must Die.
He must.
Do you remember that movie? I remember that movie.
I remember the name of it, and I remember it was like a dude who...
He was a really scummy guy
Yeah.
who kept cheating on girls, and then they banded together to get him back.
I remember there's like a couple cute girls in the film. That's all I
Yeah.
remember about it.
Hayden Panettiere, I think, is in it.
Was John Tucker played by Josh Duhamel or something?
No. He's an actor who I've seen in other stuff, but he's not a big name. For some reason, though, I've seen that movie, I want to say 3 or 4 times, and I can't explain why. It was one of those movies that was always on TNT or Comedy Central.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, Shanti was in it.
There we go. Taylor Kitsch, your boy.
Your boy.
He's in that.
It's weird that it wasn't too good then. So its total domestic run, Miami Vice's total domestic run, was $63.5 million.
Ouch.
So not even close to that production budget. I'm sure it made some internationally, but
You know what I honestly think might have been what spiked that budget up? All the international travel they did.
yeah.
They did a lot of on-location filming in, like, Paraguay. Nobody would know you're in Paraguay. Like, whatever, dude. Just
I don't
film
even
and
remember
film
them
in,
being
like...
in Paraguay in the movie.
Exactly. Like, there was just a lot of... Like, all the Cuba stuff is different countries, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
So, like, they had to go, I don't know, do all these things in foreign lands. I'm like, why didn't you just make it work, you know? It's fine. That's the least of my worries with this film.
If someone's writing the checks to Michael Mann, he's gonna cash them.
That's true. That's old Michael Mann just gonna cash those checks.
And Michael Mann loves those prestige shots of the
yeah.
locations, and he uses them pretty well here.
And say what you will about this film, the shots are good.
Yeah, competent.
It's one of the first like big summer releases, I think, that was like all digital video. That wasn't like a straight sci-fi movie or something. But it had a really strong look for it being digital video. Like, it was pretty obvious that it was digital video, I thought, personally.
Yeah, and I just don't know that stuff well enough to say.
But you could I noticed it right away, and I don't know if you just said yeah because you were agreeing with me, but it was something. But I looked it up. Yeah, it was definitely digital video, but it was a solid look, man. It kind of actually helped the look of it, I thought.
There was a definite distinctive style to it, and that's why I asked, because when we were watching, I was like, do you think this is digital? As if I would know, and that would make a difference to me.
I mean, it looked grittier, kind of
It did look
messier,
grittier,
but it was very solid and polished at the same time.
And they did some like color washing or grading. I don't know what the right term would be, but the blues weren't very vibrant and stuff. And I think it suits the plot in the movie pretty well.
For sure. There's only one moment it ever bothered me, which was towards the end, and that was just because like they were filming in magic hour, the sunset, and there was one shot where the lighting changed, and just from doing video stuff before I knew, that probably was filmed like 3 hours later or another day, and they had to like get a pickup shot. And
I didn't like it at the very beginning. The opening scene's like a montage of boat races.
Yeah.
And it's very darker because that's the style of the movie.
Yeah.
But when I'm picturing like Miami boat races, I'm not picturing like overcast because it looked overcast.
Yeah. Well, just some trivia for you. They filmed during hurricane season. And that actually played to their favor at some points because there were some shots of just like the water around Miami with a giant like huge cloud storm system with lightning in the background.
Yeah.
You could tell it's miles away, but it just made for some impressive filmmaking.
Sure. You get the helicopter up there, you get those shots.
But they actually did have a couple shutdowns on the set because of hurricane season. This was filmed during Katrina and like the other big 3 hurricanes that were around Katrina.
Yeah, yikes.
So they had to like literally shut down filming at several points.
Yeah.
Also could add to that budget being
Probably
pretty big.
Having to break down and then come back.
And then I believe some of the foreign shooting, I think they had some issues in the Dominican Republic when they filmed there with some rowdy peoples. And I mean, that's what you risk when you're doing the shots they were doing. For sure. But, you know, it's Miami Vice. You want it to be gritty. You want Miami to be as much a character as the characters themselves.
That's right.
Which I didn't feel it at first.
I didn't feel it at all.
About halfway through when they started doing the highway shots, we talked about like that. It's how a Florida highway looks. That helped.
They left Miami so much.
Though. Exactly. Yeah, they could have had more boats, more speedboats.
But they spent at least as much time in Cuba in this movie as they did in Miami.
And I mean, they were going for big. They were trying to be like, let's take down this big drug ring. I get it.
And we'll get to it.
Yeah.
But that's not what this should have been.
Yeah.
I think what's interesting is this came right after Jamie Foxx won his Academy Award for Ray.
Yeah.
In his portrayal of Ray Charles. And he had already been cast and agreed to be in Miami Vice. And then after he won the award, he said, I shouldn't be making less than Colin Farrell.
You shouldn't. That's what they do.
Didn't they just lower Colin Farrell's pay?
Yeah. Which is fair, man.
Yeah. Thanks, Jamie.
Good on Colin for just being like, all right, I'll still do it. Speaking of, Don Johnson actually originally suggested Colin Farrell to play his character of Crockett.
Colin Farrell is weird as hell in this movie.
Dude,
and I don't know the source material enough, but...
You described him as looking like he's like, I forgot how you worded it perfectly, but it was something like his father was a cigarette. And that's honestly what he looks like in this. He's just like, he has long hair pushed back, this like
greasy,
nasty handlebar mustache.
And the hair is like partially bleached blonde.
Yeah. He wears like a modern version of the Don Johnson suit thing he was doing.
Yeah.
But like sleek modern suits with the t-shirt underneath. It works all right for when he's trying to be like a scummy drug dealer.
Yeah.
But it's just kind of silly. Yeah.
I'll say this. Don Johnson in Miami Vice in the episode that we watched was a lot cooler looking than Colin Farrell was.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So in order to prepare fully for this, we watched, I think it was a season 2 episode called Where the Buses Don't Go.
Yep.
And I have seen a couple Miami Vice episodes from when I was a kid, and I know some iconic moments from it.
Yeah.
I don't think you had much experience with Miami Vice.
If I'd seen clips, I probably wasn't even aware that there were Miami Vice clips.
Yeah. I kind of like Miami Vice. I might check out some episodes here and there if I have nothing else to watch.
The episode we watched was cool as hell.
Yeah. First of all, the visual look of the TV show, beautiful because it very much fits Miami. It's Miami in the 80s, which at the time was modern Miami. Yeah, there's a lot of like garish, outlandish 80s looks to it. There's like a guy rollerblading in a very effeminate outfit.
Yep.
There's some crazy stuff going on. I think Little Richard was playing a preacher in the episode we were watching.
Was that Little Richard?
It was either Little Richard or like a
lookalike.
Little James, his brother. I don't know.
Little James.
But no, I mean, it just had this very like pink, green, like blue hue to everything that was...
Yeah.
It fit. There was a lot of soft colors in the inside, like on the interiors, but outside it was like, you know, some neons, some what is it? If you ever see like a synthwave album, it looks like that. Very much the Vice look. Like GTA Vice City is directly influenced by, you know, Miami Vice,
without a doubt.
And
that's why it's called Vice City.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just like all that look is in the show, and that's just like that's the visual identity the show had from the get go.
And the movie definitely goes a different direction.
They do try to create a consistent visual identity, which is, it's okay. Like I said, with the gritty video and all that, there's a lot of greens, like you mentioned.
Yep.
It's just not strong. It's not how this one is.
Yeah. Let's table the discussion of the episode because there's a few things I want to compare.
Oh, yeah.
When we get into it here. Do you have any more? One of my favorite facts is Colin Farrell's prep for this role.
Dude, yeah. So in order to get the guys ready, they had them both kind of like watch some police things, but Colin Farrell wants to go even like further into it, some undercover gigs.
Yeah.
And so he was like, well, let me go on like an actual undercover like routine. And so they took him on one. Things got heated. They pulled out some guns. He ripped open his shirt and was yelling out like, do I look like I have a wire? Like I don't have a wire.
No.
And the cops were like, dude, you did awesome. Like we would think you're one of us. So he felt good about it leaving it, but then apparently he had a lot of insomnia and anxiety afterwards and couldn't sleep because he realized like he could have died.
Yeah.
And so once he called the police chief to like talk to them about it some more, see if like what he can do about it, they were like, that was actually a completely simulated event and
entirely staged.
We were so impressed with you with it, we didn't want to break your kind of character development from it. So I think after that he was all right, but that's how serious it got.
What's funny is he wanted to go the extra mile with the police side, but he didn't watch any Miami Vice to prepare for the role.
Yeah, he apparently just didn't want to be tainted by the original show, which I wish he was tainted by it.
Yeah, I sort of get where he's coming from, though.
Yeah, you don't
want
want
to make it his role.
Yeah.
And Miami Vice is so iconic, you don't want to just get lost in Don Johnson's version of Crockett.
Yeah.
But
and I get that. but even then, maybe he should have, because Colin Farrell went on the record of saying that he doesn't like it very much. He thought that the film was style over substance, and that he actually accepts a good bit of the responsibility.
Which is fair.
Yeah. He said he felt they missed an opportunity to have fun in the movie and to bring in like a very strong element of like friendship.
Yeah, like Lethal Weapon.
Yeah. So I agree with him.
I agree wholeheartedly.
Yeah,
that's actually a very poignant review.
Yeah. Like we don't got to do anything else here. Thanks, Colin.
Love to have you on the pod, Colin. Hear it from the horse's mouth.
Yeah. Next week on the critical. No, I'm just kidding.
Now, so the plot this one sets up is essentially, instead of a small drug bust, it's this international drug delivery, trying to get to the supplier, from the dealer to the supplier, and it becomes this huge international rat race almost, where they're flying to Cuba to organize their deal, to boat from Miami to Cuba to take the drugs here and there. There's like kingpins and
basically the feds got ratted out.
Yeah.
Basically the feds got ratted out.
Yeah.
They get killed, and so the feds need someone because they realize they've been busted completely.
Yep.
So who do you get? You get Miami's Vice cops because
like
they're the
local.
best. Yeah. And nobody knows them exactly. They're more like a small task force. And we see them at first opening, like working on a small case in Miami.
Yeah, in a nightclub.
Yeah, which I would have been interested in seeing that play out more.
I would have loved to have seen it played out more.
Because we didn't see them get to do a full like local thing.
They did a lot of build up with that, and then they just didn't pay it off.
And it never tied back to it.
It left us blue balls.
Yeah, so...
They're scoping it out. They see their target take the bait, and then they get pulled out of the situation.
Yeah.
Man, that was so frustrating.
It was a bad way to start a movie, first of all. But then they get pulled into this greater plot where this one criminal informant is freaking out. Basically, he commits suicide because he knows he's in trouble because he screwed over the feds, and he's going to get killed either way by either the feds or the criminals. Then the feds come and get them, and they're like, hey, dudes, we got this big thing going on. But they're like, we're Miami Vice, we're going to run it our way. Yeah. And the feds are pissed, but they're like, okay. And then we just go straight into this like ridiculous plot line. Like you said, we're in Cuba.
Yep.
I think at first they might have gone to the Dominican at first or Haiti. They went somewhere, and they meet with this one dude who I thought looked like Fred Armisen, but nobody else agreed with me, which is fine. I won't use that to refer to him.
It's John Ortiz.
Ortiz.
He's been in so many things, and he looks nothing like Fred Armisen.
No, there's I'll find a picture of the character eventually. There is a Fred Armisen character that does that look. Don't worry about it. I'll find it. But
I'm rolling my eyes, everyone.
Yeah. Anyway, so what was his character's name?
I didn't write that down, but he was kind of the dealer side.
Yeah.
Like a pretty major dealer. I want to say in Miami, because he had like casinos and stuff that he ran.
Yeah. So he was back and forth himself between like the Caribbean and Miami.
Because then there was the bigger kingpin.
Yeah.
The I didn't write the character's name for this either, but he was like a bearded, quiet supplier.
He basically looked like, I don't know, like he would be playing with Gloria Estefan back in the 80s. So that was like good casting for that. Yeah. But no, he was like this like legit dealer. They get introduced to him, and they meet his, but she's been in one scene before, but they actually have an interaction with Isabella, who's played by Gong Li.
Yep.
What's interesting is she's 11 years older than Colin Farrell.
Oh.
That's one of the rare things where, like, in a movie they have an older woman with a younger man. And so
her character was a little strange to me too.
She was like a Chinese immigrant to Cuba, I guess during the communist era, and well, I mean they're both technically communist, but you know what I'm saying, like back in the day.
So she was very in tune with like Cuban culture.
Yeah,
and it was just off-putting to me.
Well, they didn't explain it well enough. I think they didn't focus
explain it
on
well.
that.
Yeah.
And
then they thrust her into this relationship with Crockett.
Yeah,
and it was so forced.
And it's like this. He's like, "Do you like boats?" She's like, "Yeah." He's like, and then she says, "Do you like mojitos?" He's like, "Yeah."
She's like, "I know the best mojitos in Cuba."
And
then they go.
Then they just show them like taking off, and they're like flirty with each other immediately. And then within like one scene, they're in bed together.
Yeah.
It's
so
like
no payoff, there was no build up with a payoff. It was just straight to the punchline.
And it's like, okay, yeah, and it's really intense too. It's like
super intense.
It's weird. So basically, the plot from there, just to sum it up a little bit, they're basically having to convince the drug runners that they're like the best at what they do, which is getting drugs into the United States. Of course, they're going to be great at it because they're just vice cops doing it. But they go and they recover some drugs that have been stolen just to prove how good they are. It almost sounds too good. Is the main point that like the back and forth guy is Ortiz, the one played by Ortiz. He's like, "You guys are too good, so I don't trust you."
Yeah, and so he starts. I don't know if he had a tail, but he somehow was watching them.
Yeah.
And he finds out that they're cops or that there's something up with them.
Yeah.
Maybe not necessarily cops, but that they're not legit. And so the first big set piece with that is, I want to say, it was when they kidnapped Tubbs's girlfriend, who's a fellow police officer played by Naomi Harris.
I think her name's Trudy.
Her name is Trudy. Yeah. Trudy Joplin.
And for this, they kind of hinted at it first because he sent a bunch of flowers to them.
Yeah.
And she was like, "Thanks for the flowers, babe." And he's like, "That ain't me."
Yeah.
So they did build up to that, and then
which was pretty cool.
Yeah.
It was like, they're watching me. Like, you're a cop though, so you keep doing your job. That's what she said to Tubbs.
And so eventually they do take her. What's interesting is she was taken by white supremacists who was kind of like one of the big crime rings they're trying to bust. And that's what the feds bring them in. Well, the guys who shoot up the feds were white supremacists. And that's actually a Michael Mann staple. He always has like Wango in Heat was a white supremacist.
Yeah.
And then apparently some of the characters in Collateral were. Some of his other films may have dipped into that, but it's a great bad guy to use because nobody likes them.
Yeah.
And you can make him creepy. You can do all sorts of things to him. It's great.
And everyone's gonna hate him.
Yeah. So you have them there. And I guess the Caribbean drug runners are working with them to distribute the product.
Yeah.
And so they're trying to get, Tubbs and Crockett to get the stuff to them.
Yeah.
But like you said, they take her. The guys know all of a sudden that the job has changed because Ortiz's character calls them and is like, "You're going to meet me here instead of this one spot.
Yeah.
If not, she's going to die. Yeah, in 15 minutes." So they have to come up with a plan on the fly. They just barely save her from the trailer she's kept in.
Yeah, so they just seal Team 6 into the trailer.
It's a
kind
pretty
of a cool
scene.
takedown scene.
Yeah. I thought it was better than the final gunfight.
I agree. It's definitely better than
the final gunfight. It was more
powerful.
It was
more interesting.
Yeah. I didn't care for the fact that there's a huge explosion at the end that injures her. I felt it was just double dipping.
Yeah, because you already have the payoff of them. Yeah. So it's really cool how they shoot it because they're kind of like guerrilla fighters going in. You see them putting the police vest on. All those really satisfying things you get in police dramas. And with the way it's shot, it's a really nice build-up.
Yeah.
And they're walking through. It looks like a jungle, but it's just those big palm trees in Miami.
Florida trailer park.
Yeah. And they're taking people down, and then they get into the trailer. This is my one other complaint. The last bad guy kind of has Naomi Harris held there. And there's this really good payoff moment where one of the other random backup cops comes in and makes this speech and shoots him. But that should have been like Jamie Foxx doing that.
Yeah.
She was talking about like the caliber of the bullet, the speed it'll go, and all this, and then she just fires the shot.
She was like, "If I shoot you through your throat, it'll cut your spinal cord. You won't even have time to like press the grenade you have." And she does it, and it's a cool scene, but from a character you don't give a shit about.
Yeah, so it's just okay. It felt immediately squandered.
Yeah, it was just cheap.
So then they're kind of settling everything. Naomi Harris's character, Trudy, had a bomb around her neck, and they just take it off and put it on the table. And then they're like, you wait here while we get the paramedic or whatever. And then the fucking bomb goes off.
Yeah,
like,
the guy...
I knew as soon as she was waiting, I was like, okay, that bomb's going off.
The mid-level drug dealer guy, the Caribbean one, he's like, all right, time to explode the bomb.
Yeah,
they just cut to him doing it. Yeah. And so she gets blown up. She survives, but she's in the hospital in the ICU. So,
but you're right that it felt like double dipping because the fuse had like burned out on that situation. You're kind of exhaling now, and then they try and maybe it's a
cheap thing.
Yeah, it's a cheap thrill.
It's one of the things I hated in the Matrix films, but that's like a different story altogether. They kept killing Trinity over and over again. It was like, come on. But yeah, I can't stand that kind of stuff. So had they picked one or the other, I think like we said, the rescue worked so well that they should have just left it alone.
Yep.
And then from there, basically, they set up like another true exchange because this time they skipped out because they took Trudy, so they were like, no. So they're like, we're gonna exchange in our territory now, like on our rules. And they go through the whole big setup where they meet up again.
Yeah, and this time everyone's got like their full forces.
Yeah.
The Vice side has the drugs,
Yeah.
and John Ortiz's gang has the money.
Yeah.
And they want to do this exchange. They send Isabella over, or John Ortiz sends Isabella over to make sure they have the product, and then the Vice sends another unnamed cop over to check it out. There's snipers. This was sort of cool.
Yeah.
There was a little bit of artificial buildup where one of the older like sergeants in the police force was
basically.
Yeah, he was trying to find the snipers that the other side would have with this heat infrared.
He had his own sniper, basically. Yeah.
He had his own sniper, and they were trying to find him. And then he just eventually found him, so it didn't pay off in any meaningful way.
Because it turns to a giant like gunfight after that.
Yeah.
And there were some cool shots within it and some cool like bits within it, but it went on too long.
It was so generic
and
though, overall.
It was switching between like realistic gunfighting where you're like having to hide out and then action movie gunfighting, and it didn't know what it wanted to be.
And sometimes the camera would be a little shaky and following people. It seemed like almost a war kind of shot.
Yeah.
And then other times it was very glorified, like someone just jumping up with a Tommy gun.
And I like the war aspects of it better. Yeah. I thought that was cool. And it matched more with the trailer park scene.
Yeah, it's
the
more
trailer
grounded.
park scene had a cool moment where Jamie Foxx is like eyeing somebody, and it's a close-up of his eyes, and then his eye twitches, and then he shoots at the same time. Yeah. That was cool. Then in this scene, you have like a couple moments that like look like they're going that way, but it was. I mean, Jamie Foxx runs up and finally kills Ortiz's character. He shoots like his bodyguard, then he like shotguns him in the chest. Yeah. Ortiz's character flies back like 20 feet, hits a
huge
boat,
hole in his
and
chest.
Blood goes everywhere. And it's like that wasn't what all the other gunfight looked like. So that's kind of crazy.
So then during the gunfight, something else happens. Isabella, who has fallen for Sonny Crockett and vice versa, he kind of pulls her aside and is like, wait here by one of the cars. And I have no idea how she didn't realize that he was a cop at this point.
Yeah.
Because about 2 minutes later, it goes into this slow motion scene of her like running up to him, realizing he's a cop.
Yeah. But what he did, he pulled out his badge on the necklace so that the other cops could tell he was like one of them. So that was her visual cue. But it seemed like she should have known by now.
At the point of the shootout and this whole deal,
there was a police copter flying above them with a light on at this point.
There was multiple snipers.
Yeah.
There's cop cars
like
there.
45 cops ran in by this point.
Yeah. So I had no ability to believe that. And she was above John Ortiz's character in that side of the gang. So if John Ortiz knows, she probably would have known.
Yeah.
It was
just messy filmmaking at that point.
Well, that's just bad storytelling.
Yeah.
Because you have to convince us that the things that the characters are seeing are realistic reactions, and it wasn't.
And then after this, pretty much the conclusions.
Colin Farrell drives away with her.
Yeah, he grabs her and takes off. You see that Justin Theroux's character got injured, but he's fine. Yeah. Trudy comes back after this. She doesn't come back. She just wakes up in the hospital, and Tubbs is, happy, and he's with her. And then Colin just jumps in his car, takes off. Yeah. He's driving all night, which they're still in Florida, so I guess they drove to another part of Florida.
And she's mad at him the whole time.
Yeah, she's like pissed.
Cuff her.
And he like zip tie cuffs her, and then he takes her to a safe house. And he's like, "My buddy Frank will be here within the hour to take you away.
Go far away."
Yeah. And so basically, she screwed over her boyfriend & main drug dealer, who we barely touched on because he's barely in the film. He's the top dog. But when they finally crack down the top dog in the foreign country he's in, he's gone. His whole estate's abandoned. So he's still out there. So Crockett gets her to safety, we guess.
Yeah. They had talked about earlier how Colin Farrell was like, if you could run right now and just leave it all behind and go anywhere, would you? And she was like, would you go? And he'd be like, I'd be right behind you. Yeah. So then here, he was like, go. And then I guess the expectation is that you'd be right behind him. But
just right off the bat, I agree with what you said that this plot's kind of too big.
Yeah. No,
you don't do Miami enough in the movie about Miami.
Yeah. That's the frustrating thing about it. Because like Heat is so cool and Heat is so LA.
Yeah.
That's what Miami Vice should like. You don't want to be the director who does the same kind of movie again and again, but Heat rules. Like, like it's okay if you grab some traits of Heat and put them in Miami.
You could have
Vice.
simplified a lot of this plot. Focus more on those white supremacists. Sure. Everybody knows Florida has some really weird rednecks in it. Like Florida, you pretty much have your major cities with a huge Latino population.
Yep.
Then you have your like woodsy type areas.
Backwoods,
with a lot of backwoods folk, and alligators and swamps, and you should deal with that. It's like where Southern meets Spanish, basically. Yeah. There's a lot of cool stuff you could do with that environment.
Or just put the drug kingpin in Miami too. Just keep it in Miami.
Don't have multiple layers of drug kingpins too. No. Just have like 2 at best.
And John Ortiz, I don't think is a very good villain because he's a character actor.
Yeah,
he always plays like a hard-boiled detective or like a lawyer who knows a little better than everybody else.
He could possibly even pull off like Squirrely.
Yeah, a little bit.
But in this, he was just like they were trying to go for like a mixture between intimidating and weaselly.
Yeah, and they pulled off the look of a weasel.
Yeah, but it didn't. Yeah, it just wasn't.
It doesn't work.
Yeah,
my biggest problem, additionally to them leaving Miami for a large majority
for like
of the
2/3 of the film,
is Crockett and Tubbs were not together for most of the movie. Yeah. At least half the movie, they were completely separate. Because Crockett went with Isabella to Cuba, and Tubbs is on boats, and I had no idea what he was doing.
There wasn't enough Tubbs.
And then when they were together, they didn't have any chemistry. Yeah. No on-screen chemistry.
There was like one scene where Tubbs is like, Crockett, are you in too deep? And he's like, no, man. And he's like, I got your back until, like, ride or die. And I was like, we want more of that. Yeah. We want to see this friendship.
But you have to sell it with the friendship before. Yeah. The one episode of Miami Vice we watched sold me more on that. And that was in the middle of the second season of that show. Yeah. So it's not like they're first building that relationship.
So I did some research on Miami Vice, the TV show, and I was like, what is the best episode to watch? And everyone, hands down, was like, watch episode 21 from season 1 called Evan. It's great. And I read the plot, and it's like they find out a former colleague committed suicide because he was gay, and I guess he got exposed. And then a homophobic former colleague and friend is like making a big deal about it. I couldn't find it anywhere streaming. Like Hulu didn't have it.
It's on Hulu, but they just skipped that episode for whatever reason.
Yeah. So I was like, what's up with that? So I did see that apparently there was a lot of slurs and epithets and stuff that you don't want to say. So I was like, well, maybe that's why. But all I could really find was they used a lot of Peter Gabriel music, and he's very picky about who gets to use his music.
He's stingy with his rights.
So there might not be distribution rights for it, for that specific episode.
Which sucks.
Yeah, because it sounded like a good episode.
Yeah, and I don't know. I mean, I'm all about creators having rights to their work and everything, but it's frustrating when it restricts you from seeing other things.
Dude, it's Miami Vice. Just let it run, like let it air. Don't have
what's so
issues
wrong with that?
So... But then we picked another good episode that I found recommendations for called Where the Buses Don't Run.
Yeah, and we talked about it a little earlier, but the plot is very Miami. It's drug bust. They're in the water. It's bright. It's colorful. It's gunfights. But then there's this really interesting second layer where this like retired cop comes back into the picture.
Yeah.
And the whole time they set you up with this idea that he just wants to get this one guy who got away earlier and he wouldn't give up on it. And so he keeps pointing Crockett and Tubbs to this guy to investigate, and they're very doubtful about him. They're checking in on him and everything. And then in the end, it turns out that he has some mental disorder.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's like undiagnosed PTSD or something.
He basically got in too deep.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so he ended up killing the guy he's been looking for the whole time.
Yeah, the guy was dead the whole time.
Yeah. And they built him into a like house.
Yeah.
And built the walls around him and stuff. Yeah. And his former partner who had when Crockett and Tubbs met with him, he was like, no, like he's crazy, leave him alone.
He didn't want anything to do with the Force anymore.
He shows up at the last second because they called him in, and because they were scared that like this guy was going to commit suicide or something. He was in a rough spot, and they knew it. But he finally shows them that he did kill the guy, and he built him into this wall. And his former partner's like, what do you expect? He's my partner. Of course I helped him. I helped him build him into the wall here. Yeah. And it was powerful. It was cool.
Very powerful.
It was like, oh wow, like I didn't expect this because the character the whole time he's doing like impressions for 2/3 of the episode, like, and he gets more unhinged. But your first act, you're like, this guy's weird.
You just think he's kind of a nut job.
Yeah, he's like Joey from Full House for the first act.
He's like drinking a bottle of milk at one point for like 20 seconds.
Yeah. So he has a computer that he's like in love with named like Lorraine or something.
Yeah, Loretta. Or something like
and it's a good episode though. I definitely recommend it if you want to check out what the show's like.
It got me interested in the show. Yeah. Because I'm probably going to watch more now.
Yeah. So I mean, like I said earlier, the show has such a strong, unique visual identity. Had great music. Just good 80s tunes the whole time.
Let's talk music real quick.
Oh, God.
This movie had horrible music. Everything was like a cover of a good song.
The best song in this, and arguably, I will say, is Linkin Park and Jay-Z. Their mashup song they had together. I think they did a whole album.
It was like a big release. I don't remember the name of the song.
But it fit for the scene because they were in a club. It was 2006. It made perfect sense. We were laughing at it, but I was like, hey, it works for like Florida and the 2000s.
Then when the Jay-Z part came in, it was like, okay, this is actually is working.
Yeah. But the rest of the time, man, not much going on here.
Yeah, it was horrible. Horrible, like, punk covers of good 80s songs throughout. Not suiting the movie in any way. It doesn't feel like Miami.
No. No Will Smith.
No, it was super disappointing how bad the music was.
Especially because the more you see of the show, like, one of the big things people loved about the show was that it always tied in modern, cool pop tunes, rock tunes. Like, they did it, man. They had it in there as part of the show. It was like, it was the audio identity of the show, I guess. But the movie just didn't do that.
No, it has a very poor audio identity.
Yeah.
So my biggest problems would be, don't separate Crockett and Tubbs.
Yeah.
Don't literally have them in different countries.
Give
Keep
us
them
that partnership, you know?
Give us a partnership, yeah. And maybe Colin Farrell and Jamie Foxx just didn't have chemistry. I mean, I don't know. It's hard to tell. But if it was written this way and that was on purpose, you take arguably the strongest point of Miami Vice and you just take it away for no reason.
Yeah, yeah.
And when you leave Miami, you take away part of the title.
You take out Miami, then it's about the Vice cops and their partnership. You take that out.
Yeah.
You just got this weird drug running crime film.
Yeah, and then it's a pretty generic drug running crime film. If it wasn't called Miami Vice,
like the most unique thing about it is that the digital video filming looked cool.
Yeah. And it looks very different from the TV show, but I don't even think that's necessarily a problem.
No, man.
It's just a different visual identity.
Like I said, as long as it had a very consistent identity, it could work. And it did have a consistent identity for the visuals, but they just didn't do anything with the story, the characters.
Yeah, I was bummed out by it.
And just minor complaint, but it kind of ruined our viewing. I don't know. I don't remember this in the film when I saw it in the theaters, but the leveling on the Blu-ray was terrible.
Oh, yeah. Gosh, especially like the first half.
Yeah.
Jamie Foxx's character was so low.
You couldn't hear anything he said.
You couldn't understand anything he was saying. At one point, we were like, "Should we turn subtitles on?"
Yeah.
And the music was very loud, and especially that first scene was in a club, so you couldn't understand him at all.
Bad leveling. Like I said, I don't remember that in the theatrical release. Yeah. This is the unrated only edition they make for the Blu-ray. Yeah. But nah, man, it was hard to get into because of that.
That seems like such an unacceptable thing to me. It seems like such a basic thing for a movie. Yeah. Like, The Dark Knight Rises had challenges with Bane because obviously his voice was crazy with the mask and everything. And they actually did a good job of translating it to Blu-ray. Yeah. Because it's like very bass heavy. In the theater, that sounds really good. But they did a good job of imitating that in the Blu-ray. But here, this isn't even anything that like challenging. It's just
making
us hear it.
Yeah. That your vocal levels are higher than your song levels.
Yeah.
Yeah. It
was weird.
It was annoying. Yeah, like we said, it ruined the first half of the film for us because it's hard to get into.
Also, Colin Farrell was insane in this movie. We talked about how he looked, but he had some random outbursts.
Every time he met Ciarán Hinds' character, who was the chief of the feds, the guy would be like, yeah, just make sure you report into us like every other day so we know what's going on. And Colin Farrell's like, fuck you, man. And it's like, what?
Yeah, he really would.
Yeah, just out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And then
the random outbursts.
yeah,
like
every
that.
single time he met with that character, he would have those outbursts. And I don't know why.
No, it's inexplicable.
He wasn't like that with anyone else.
No. That during their first scene where they were trying to like sell themselves to John Ortiz, he pulls out a hand grenade.
Oh yeah.
And
yeah.
he's like, I'm gonna splatter your blood across that wall, and then they're gonna sell it like it's a Jackson Pollock.
Yeah.
And all this stuff. And he's sort of weird there. One question that I had, can you just put a pin back in a grenade?
I'm going with because they did.
They didn't settle that if you can't.
Movies don't lie.
Yeah, I guess. But I've never seen someone in a movie put a pin back in a grenade.
Yeah. I said he was just going to hold a grenade for the rest of the movie.
That would have been amazing.
Yeah.
He's having sex with Isabella. She's like, oh, put that down. He's like, I can't.
He's like, I'm about to explode. She's like, what? He's like, the grenade. So yeah, that's Miami Vice.
Yeah, it's not the worst film we've watched.
Nah. If you're looking for an interesting film to watch, it's interesting in that sense.
It's long.
It is long. Too long.
The version we watched, the director, Ultimate Edition, whatever, I don't know how much was added.
Get it on DVD and watch it. So you get the Ultimate Edition.
Yeah. Though my experience with Michael Mann movies is that they're long.
They're long.
But the nice thing about like Heat is Heat flies by because it's amazing.
Because it's good.
And this drags at points.
Yeah.
Like the middle of this movie, when they're flying to, you said Paraguay. I want to say Panama was in there.
Yeah, sure. Colombia, Cuba.
She was in Europe at one point too. I wonder if they actually went to Europe.
No, I read it. They were in somewhere in South America that was very old school. Yeah.
But it definitely dragged in the middle there. At one point, I think I looked at you and I was like, "What are they doing?"
Yeah, I had to pause and explain like a 5-minute sequence to you just because like it didn't make sense, and the only reason I knew it was because I had seen the film before. So it was goofy.
It's worth checking out if you really like Michael Mann.
Yep, I say instead of watching this, just watch the TV show.
Yeah, it's on Hulu. It's worth
pretty
watching.
good.
Yeah.
So, like I said, I might check out more of it.
I'm hoping to.
Yeah.
Max, where can the good people find us?
Well, you can always find us running drugs between the Caribbean and the United States, or you can just go to thecriticalbreakdown.com. We run a podcast, and that's our website. So you can find me cruising down the Miami highways, or you can just find me in Twitter at Max Rivera Film.
You can find me having the best mojito in Cuba. Or you can find me at breakdown_Scott. Shoot us an email at thecriticalbreakdownpodcast@gmail.com. There's too many ads.
There's a lot of ads.
Follow us on Facebook. You get all of our posts then, see all of our updates, all the blogs we write. We do a lot of stuff, man.
Yeah, man, it's cool.
Shoot us a review on iTunes.
Yeah.
If you like the podcast, if you like Miami Vice, if you like just the weather outside.
Yeah, it's
5
nice
stars,
weather.
Man.
Jason Brown did our music.
Josh Rivera did our art.
Wally is the podcast dog.
And we, the podcast boys.
How could I ever forget it's the first time, the last time we ever...
Next week on The Critical Breakdown.
We're going to get real magical and watch Willow.
Rated 48% on Rotten Tomatoes.
My favorite character is Mad Mardigan. Who's yours, Scott?
My favorite character is Willow.
But the pain still grows. Some